Alan, thank you so much for joining me on the Quantum Trading Podcast. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here with me.
Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate that. I don't get to speak to a lot of people these days with everything being locked down, so I'm not on the road as much doing presentations. So this is valuable to me. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And I hear that you're in LA County, aren't you, Santa Clarita?
Yeah.
So your gym's still shut, right?
Yeah, we're allowed to do outdoor operations. I'm not going to get political. COVID is real, but it's being politicized, let's just say. LA County is the most locked down place in the country and has the worst numbers. So right. It's suggested the lockdown hasn't really worked here. But it's you can focus on the obstacles, or you can focus on the opportunities, right?
Absolutely. And, it must be very, very difficult, because I know your gym is a fantastic facility. I visited it because I had relatives in Santa Clarita years ago and came over. My son was 1, so 15 years ago, and
wow.
had a mooch around. I think your wife actually.
One room there?
It was just one room. Yeah. Rachel showed me around, actually. Yeah.
We're now, we've been fortunate in that the location that I'm in, I opened with 1 unit. And now I have 5, but I haven't had to move. I just expanded.
Right. So just shops basically next to you, you've taken over. Wow. So what square foot have you got now?
5,000 something.
Wow. So that must be a big loss for you guys to have all that shut right now.
Well, it's been in part. I mean, I think, to be fair to everybody listening, I consider myself a fitness professional, and one of the things that I have is a gym. So there are some gym owners out there that was their only income stream.
Yeah.
Like, it's not the only thing that I do. And so in the beginning, it was 2 weeks to flatten the curve and slow the spread, right? And now we're in month 11, and the curve is worse than ever. So it's, but where I am fortunate is we do have some outdoor. I can't do it at my gym. Just the idea of training outdoors is fine, but I don't have like a flat, beautiful area outside my gym. So we have a park nearby. We did some remote coaching. There was a little while we were allowed to be open for a little while indoors. And there's certain tax codes, without getting into it, in the US that differentiates personal training from gyms. Some operations are allowed.
Okay.
It's been a challenge, but it's like I said, you can be the guy who just refuses to pivot and refuses to move, or you can be the guy who just you figure it out, right? You'll adapt. Like I don't like the phrase when we get back to. I'm like, every trainer who's listening to this, was it that good last February that your business was just so on point? No, you probably had things that you wanted to change about that too, right? So this is your chance to reinvent. And we've always done remote coaching. I don't like the term online. To me, this is just an interview. The fact that it's online doesn't change it, right? Like, It's just, could be TV, could be radio. So a podcast is just it came from the actual term iPod originally, I believe. Podcast.
I think so, yeah.
So I just think I always called it remote coaching. When my athletes do their running or they're at the track, I'm not there counting steps and timing them. So I've always done a bit of that, and this just had to expand. And then it's the hardest part for me is all the speaking engagements went away too. That became a challenge. So
yeah.
Like I said, you can see the obstacle, or you can see the opportunity, right?
So when you initially opened that first facility, that first unit in Santa Clarita, was it always your intention to promote other areas of the business as well, to not just focus on that one income stream?
I think I was always aware of multiple income streams, but I'd be lying if I say I was that tuned in the beginning, right? Like it started originally, I had moved here, the long story short, I had moved here and I met my wife in New York. She's from the LA County area. So we'd moved out here, and I was working at a local gym, and I just was like, I'd been working for myself in New York for a while, and as I was working at this gym trying to build a clientele, and it just was like, I wasn't happy. So I wrote down, I've always been a believer in personal development, and I said, right, what is it that's frustrating you? And I wrote them all down, all the things I didn't like. And there's about 8 related to the work environment, not the people were good, just how the system worked. And I just was like, I don't know if I want to do this. But I was looking at like, so 80% of my frustrations were related to this one location. Let's get rid of it. And I said, right, I'm going to have the athletes that I'm working with and a couple of clients. I'm going to find a little place. We opened with 600 square foot of gym space that I was going to put in some training equipment, and I would just train my guys. Right. And this was maybe the first personal training studio, definitely in the area, perhaps California, that I was aware of. And it grew, and Rachel started working there, and then we hired a staff member, and we're all doing one-on-one at the time. And then it went to semi-private plus one-on-one. And then I added a program design option for parents of kids or spouses who didn't want to come to the gym, or their schedule wouldn't allow it with my hours, because we had a small space. I couldn't fit in a lot of clients. So now I had this kind of remote coaching business then. Then I got sick, 2004. I got diagnosed with cancer, 2004, and then again in 2006. And my good friend Ryan Lee, who I'm sure you know, taught me about information products and really educational. And so my original programs then were a couple of ebooks of programs that I sold online. From there, I started doing some writing, and you've seen the New Rules of Lifting books. So I would love to say it was my plan, but I was just always aware of opportunity. I just would always see it. And then as the writing grew, I got offered speaking engagements, and it became a point that I had to separate these to two separate companies, right? But even within a company, like if you're a nutritionist, do you just sell diet plans? You should be looking at some supplements too for people. And maybe you should be looking at maybe partnering with someone who can teach people how to cook. Maybe you could be doing grocery tours, right? You can build within your skill set multiple areas to work on, right? So if you considered yourself during a lockdown a gym owner, and that was the only skill set you had, you're dead in the water. But if you're a fitness professional who can rent out programs, who can rent out equipment, design programs, do Zoom coaching, do a troubleshooting, design a home gym for people, then you've got other opportunities. You can maybe do a workout outside, a boot camp style challenge or a contest. So the only thing that went away was my four walls. That's how I saw it.
But the awareness of opportunity has always been something that's been in you. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think there's a sign. I mean, I'm doing this off of a Mac, and I've got an iPhone, and I got a MacBook as my laptop. But I think it was Michael Dell said, "Listen to your customer." Right. So obviously he didn't listen as well.
As well as that, yeah.
Yeah, your customer will tell you what they're looking for, right? So I have two rules. Always pay attention. If you hear somebody ask you something 3 times, you could be the resource for it. But if you get frustrated with something, like if you get frustrated with something 3 times, I think that it's on you to fix it. Right. So I just been aware that, like, I remember being like, I didn't want to sell supplements. I didn't want to do anything like that. Be ethical, right? I don't want to recommend something. But then my clients would be taking supplements, and they're going to the local supplement shop and getting junk advice from the teenage salesman. So I just felt like ethically I should be advising them on this. Right. And then they keep asking me, can you just get it for me? So suddenly I'm like, all right, now I'm doing nutrition. But these are supplements. I can't do this unless I talk about nutrition in the first place. So suddenly you're aware of these other opportunities. Hey, is there any gyms like yours in Birmingham, in Nottingham? I'm like, but I could write a program for your friend. But I could do that. So it's just being aware. Like I've asked you this morning, how many yellow cars did you see? You cannot recall. But I've asked you to track how many yellow cars you're going to see tonight. You now have an awareness, and you'll see these yellow cars that were invisible before, right? So it's partly like you probably heard me say the 2 shoe salesman story who get sent to that one. One sees an obstacle, one sees an opportunity. It's training that mindset to do that.
Yeah, because there can't be an obstacle without an opportunity, can there? It just can't exist. Yeah,
exactly. Absolutely. And I think that's the I'd like to say I've always been aware of it, but it's a learned skill, and it has to be trained and honed, right? There's like to the point now, if I'm out driving and I drive by an empty building, like my brain starts thinking, man, look at the foot traffic here. You could put in a good health food restaurant here. You could even open a sports bar there. Like, where is this in relation to the schools? You could have lunch for the school kids. And my brain just sees opportunities unrelated to what I do. But once you start seeing it, you start to, like, I don't know if you've ever seen the FedEx logo. The FedEx logo for Federal Express has an arrow.
Arrow, yeah.
A lot of people can't see it, but once you see it, you can never not see it. No. And that's what seeing opportunities is like. Like once you always, like, again, I don't think it was an inherent trait with me, but it's definitely developed in something that I'm constantly aware of.
So that's why personal development has been so good for you, because by working on yourself, by working on raising your awareness, you teach yourself, and everything's basically a skill, right? You come from an athletic background. You were a martial artist years ago. Did you compete internationally? I believe that's true. Yep. Yeah. So I
would say again, none of that was genetic.
No,
right?
No, it's something you learn, right?
Yeah.
It's something you learn. So repetition, practice, technique, mastery over long periods of time. And it's true with any area of your life.
Yeah, I believe that, right now, like, my Taekwondo instructor told me this, like, if you can, his dad taught him it, apparently. It was the power of books.
Right.
And I can tell you how long it takes to write a book compared to how long it takes to read it. It's so time consuming to produce and so not time consuming to consume, right? You can read a book that took me years of knowledge to learn and months to write, and you can read it in a week and catch up, right? So, but we take that to the next step. Is there's so much knowledge in books so my coach told me, he goes, if you can read and learn anything that anyone's ever learned. You just got to put in the work, and you've got to want it. But now it's even more so. I left here and I went down to the gym this morning, and I drove and listened to a podcast in the car. I read a book this morning. I listened to a podcast in the car. I listened to it on the way home, and now I'm here doing this. In that time, I consumed education.
Right.
Like, I don't have to go. Like, when you finish school, like, school's not over. School's never out for the pro. Right, you continue to learn. So personal development, it's perhaps personal development and fitness perhaps are the only things that never fail.
No.
They never fail. Like, it's I remember seeing that there was a commercial here years ago for like a weight loss drug, and it said when diet and exercise don't work. And I'm like, all right, I'll accept that. Apart from diet and exercise always work. Right, like, when they don't work, this pill would be great, but let's just have this assumption that this part always works. You know what I mean? Right. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's like, are you into personal development, and like, how? Let's flip that on its head. Are you into staying stagnant? Are you like into personal stagnation? Right, that's the opposite of it, right?
Of course.
It's just how much you're into it. Like, I hope everybody's trying to develop.
Of course. And this is a good time to do so, because there are people that have time on their hands, all right, forced time on their hands. But if you're not trying to learn something during this, you're going to come out of it in a worse situation than you went in, surely.
Yeah. And I hate to be that guy that you could, you could do this, you could do that. Some people are hurting financially and things are a real struggle, and they've got kids at home. But that said, the excuse for not being in shape 6 months ago was time. Right, or something. And I always said, like, if I locked you away for 3 months in prison, you'd come out jacked, right? You train and you come out amazingly. Well, you just got 3 months, right? Imagine how different your body would be if you did 10 squats twice a week and added weight to the bar. Well, imagine how different your brain would be if you read 10 pages a day, right? And just put the information in there, right? But it's it's a Jim Rohn line, actually, who's a business philosopher. It's really easy to do and really easy not to do. And that's why so few people do it, right? But it's personal development to me is like fitness training, is that it always works. Just sometimes just reading a book and you're like, I'm not really into it. I'm like, it's right now you're just downloading the software. Right? There's a little part, just put it in. Something's getting through, right? Something's getting through. Just get disciplined about it. But right now it's cool, man. Like, YouTube used to be pictures of pandas sliding down hills, right? Now you can get good lectures, like
Yeah.
quality education, Perform Better recorded all the speakers this year giving 90-minute talks, and it's available for free, right? And in little 5-minute, 10-minute chunks. You don't even need to sit for 90 minutes. You can just watch part one, and just give me 10 minutes a day. Give me 15, give me 5 minutes a day. And it's the only thing that always makes you better, right? You can't get dumber from reading a book, right?
No,
like you can't possibly get worse. Right?
No. Do you think that the ability to gain information so readily these days dilutes its impact on people? And what I mean by that is that when I was young, and going back quite some way, to get information, if I wanted information, I had to literally go to the library. I had to walk about 1.5 miles or cycle 1.5 miles to the library, get a book out, find the book, get the book out, bring it back, take notes, return it. So that information was valuable to me because I'd expended energy on going to get it. But these days we don't necessarily have to do that. We can flick a few buttons and bang, we've got the information. So is it that the information, although easier to come by, people take too much for granted now?
Well, I think so, and it's interesting you said that. In college, I did my thesis. I went to college in Chester. I did my thesis, my dissertation on creatine monohydrate when it was relatively new, right? And I had to go to the main library at the University of Liverpool, and I had to find the journal, and I had to find if it was interesting and photocopy it to see if it was anything. So while you were talking there, I put creatine monohydrate into Google, and it returned 5,680,000 results. Now, if I did this next week, that will be up by 1,000, right? There's more information on that than I could consume, right? So it dilutes its importance because it's accessible. You don't need to know stuff because you can Google it, but it also creates a situation where the number one hit there on Google is not necessarily the best one. Google is a search engine that shows you what it wants to show you, right? Like without getting kind of conspiracy theory, you can buy the first listing on Google. You can pay for it. So what I say, there's another skill now is the acquisition of knowledge is perhaps easier than ever, but filtering that information is a skill set that I didn't need. I read everything that was ever published on creatine when I did my thesis, and I could do that in a few months. Getting it was the hardest. Now I could spend the next 12 hours and I'll get through the first 2 pages of the Google returns, right? Just reading stuff. And every one of them will have links. So I think the ability to filter information is a personal development skill that we're only just touching on, right? How do you, if I had you Google, I can tell you, I Googled the type of cancer that I had when I was sick, and I spelt it wrong. Right. Google just returns what you send it. So it returns a garbage article with the misspelling of what I typed in and gave me wrong information. That scared me to death because I wasn't qualified to determine whether this was good information or not, right? So there's a little part of like, you have to have an information filter, and it's almost like a selective ignorance. I'm going to choose not to listen to certain sources, right? I'm going to choose not to consume too much here or too much here because I need to, like, the phrase I like to use is exponential education. I study like the training programs that guys like Mark Verstegen at Exos and Mike Boyle do, because I know they're still studying. So I get like a cheat code. Like I study guys who are studying, right? Like I fast forward with that. And that's the, like part of the idea is like, that helps me fast track my education. It's an exponential education. So I think you're right, is that it's the abundance of information. There's a great book called, and I wish I had it handy, The Death of Expertise, which talks about, because of this, experts are not frowned upon. Like no one, the amount of work someone needs to do to become a surgical oncologist at the top levels of cancer research, that guy's a genius. And we'll Google something that says taking, apricot seeds is just as good, right? Like there's a death of expertise. So I think that the abundance of information makes, you have to have a skill set for filtering. The acquisition of stuff, finding information is no longer a challenge.
No.
Right? Finding you can have all the new rules of lifting books and my newest program design book, and you can find what we do. You can find that quite quickly. But you've got to decide what to use and what not to use. And you could find some stuff that contradicts what we believe and some other stuff. And you can spend your whole time paralysis by analysis, right? Where you're lost as to what you're looking at. So to your point, I think the abundance of information maybe doesn't dilute its importance, but it creates another challenge, which is filtering it.
Yeah. So obviously people need to be aware of that when they're going looking for this information. And there's never been so much apparent examples of this as what's going on right now. I mean, you know, I know you're Scottish, so you keep an eye on what's going on in the UK, and everyone's an expert. You know, a couple of links into a Google search, as you say, or a Facebook post or a YouTube video, and everyone's an expert now on what's going on.
Yeah.
There's
a guy on Twitter who posts graphs of coronavirus around the world, and basically he's showing it's actually scarier than we think, because it seems that there's not a whole lot of non-pharmaceutical interventions that are that effective. It seems to be that vaccines are the main thing. Everything else is not working that well. But whenever he shows that, there's always a comment like, "Oh, it's because people aren't wearing masks." I'm like, they all decided that day that they weren't going to wear them anymore, and it's fine. They just all called each other up, all these non-mask wearing people, that all like that can't be what happened, right? That's the data. Just accept the data, right? And it's interesting because this guy just posts a graph, which here's what it is, and he doesn't give any commentary. But people will give their commentary, and it will go either way. And it's one of these, the reason cases are spiking. I seen somebody on TV very recently. Flu in the United States is really low, right? And the numbers are super low. And this person said it's because of all the mask wearing. And why are the COVID numbers still climbing? Because people aren't wearing their masks. Like, you've just taken the exact opposite approach to explain the same thing. So it's kind of like what you're saying is that people will, everyone's an expert, right? But the data just is, it's just a thing. Right. Your ability to interpret it could be biased. Even when you're interpreting it yourself, you could be biased. Like, if I see a training program that got great results and I wouldn't have written the program like that, my initial instinct is, I don't think so. This is a fluke. That's my initial instinct, but I've got to come to it with an open mind. And I think I posted this last week on Instagram. The ability to have two conflicting thoughts in your head at the same time without conflict, it's quite a complex state of being. Like, does intermittent fasting work? Yeah. And does eating multiple meals a day also work? Yeah. Now you're confused because these are the opposite, right? But if you're just like the expert mind can see the similarities. The beginner mind can only see the differences. But the ability to filter information, and I'll tell you mine for fitness training. Does this person saying this train people for a living or pay their bills as a result of getting things done? Could be research, could be training people. If not, and they're just a journalist, it doesn't mean it's not valid. It drops in it, like a peer-reviewed meta-analysis of multiple studies is real evidence. Someone's opinion on anecdote doesn't mean it's not valid, but it is less so, including mine, but it is less so. So sometimes you have to look at, right, does the abundance of the scientific research show that, staying on our topic, creatine monohydrate works? Yes. That's the abundance. Does Johnny 19 on his blog say that it'll kill you? Also, yes, right? If you had to take these two pieces of evidence to court, one would win. And that's how I filter information. Like, who said it to what group and so on. I hope that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense, yeah.
Without putting a teenage girl could have an opinion on something that's equally valid. But if it contradicts a high level, NASA scientist on their topic, then I suspect that the weight of evidence goes with that. So yeah, the acquisition of knowledge and the ability to filter information that's the magic right now. Right?
You mentioned a phrase just a moment ago, cheat code, and I saw you put a fantastic post. Actually, I think it was today on Instagram when you spoke about strength training.
Could be tomorrow.
Yeah, it could be that. Yeah, or the day before. Who knows? Yeah, strength training. Strength training is a cheat code. I love that, and I'm a big as a 52-year-old man now who still trains. Has trained, was an athlete, trains hard still when he's allowed to. But I find strength training to be invaluable to my health, to my vitality, to my longevity, and so on and so forth. It's obviously something that you agree with as well.
Well, I think for people listening, a cheat code is a video game terminology for something that you do which lets you get superpowers in the game or level up, right? So one of the things I've always said is as a martial artist since I was before my teenage years, so that must be 10 years ago now.
I never would have guessed that.
And I always say that the lie of martial arts is we use our opponent's strength against them. Right? It's the lie. Like, I understand the concept, but that taken to its logic is this tiny little 50 kilo or 100 pound or tiny little girl should beat the super heavyweight men because they're at such a disadvantage with their strength, right? Like, that's what that means, right? And false, as Dwight on The Office would say, false. The reason that we don't let the big guy fight the little girl is because strength is an advantage. The reason that we have weight classes in combat sports is because the assumption, largely true, is the bigger guy is stronger and has an advantage. We have in distance running, the males and the females compete separately. The slower males would win the female division. This is not an insult. This is just physiology, right? And the advantage is because of strength. So if we take that, if I could make you as a lightweight fighter stronger than a heavyweight, you have an illegal competitive, it's one of the reasons steroids are banned, by the way. It'd be an illegal competitive advantage other than we can't test for strength and make it illegal, right? Like, strength training is that much of an advantage. Strength training is an absolute cheat code. It's a cheat code for life, for sports, for fat loss, for anything you want to do. It's so powerful, it should be banned. Right?
But thankfully it's not, right?
No.
Thankfully it's not.
Another thing. Also, again, tying in with personal development, it's not complicated. I have to use these terms. It's very simple. Doesn't mean it's easy. Easy requires no effort. Simple means it's not complex. You just have to put the work in and you will get stronger. Yeah. Right?
And it's a long game, isn't it? Strength training. It's not a 12-week program. You could get stronger over 12 weeks, especially if you're new to training. But
it's 12 weeks is a piece of a bigger plan. That's all, right? Well, it's like I always think the term diet always means weight loss for people. When I say diet, it means weight loss. You could be on a weight gain diet. You could be on a diet to get healthier or reduce gut inflammation or something. The term diet means what you're going to consume forever. Right? Like, now you could have phases where you're eating a little bit less or eating a little bit more where you cycle through it. And I think you could have a 12-week training program, but it's the, at Results Fitness, for business reasons, I offer shorter memberships, but I really don't want to work with you unless you're coming into a year with me.
Right.
After that, I want you to renew. Like, it takes me a while to get you to know how to train.
Of course.
Right? So it's, and
especially if someone's experienced in training, and I use the famous air quotes for that, and they've ingrained movement patterns that aren't, let's say, beneficial to them, it takes you a lot longer to retrain them as well.
Yeah, I think I don't know where I learned this. I believe Paul Chek is that it's 300 to 500 reps to learn a movement, and it's 3,000 to 5,000 to correct it once it's learned. Right? So that, like, you think about that, once you've got it wrong, it can be so ingrained. It takes 10 times as long to adjust it as if you're completely fresh, right? Which is, I think, having taught martial arts to females and males, females don't come in with an idea of how to throw a punch and listen and learn how to throw a punch quickly. Guys, like, I know how to punch, right? We got to unlearn that stuff. So yeah, you're right. Is that when you're working with a pure beginner, you can progress much faster, and it's partly because there's not much to unlearn, right?
One of the things I wanted to touch on with you, because I come across this quite a lot in my work, especially with clients that are moving into self-employment or setting up their own business. And I know you have some really valid views on this, is charging what you're worth. This is a mindset that a lot of people struggle with. What are your thoughts around this topic, Alan?
So if I if I did a seminar and you hosted it for me, and we were going to give all the money, I was going to charge £10 for it, and we're going to get all the money, and we're going to give it to the children's home. Would you be okay collecting the money at the front while I get set up? Of course you would, right? Like, you'd have no problem with that. Now, if I taught the same seminar and now I said, will you be okay collecting that money? And this is for me, this is what I do for a living, then you'd be all right with taking that, right? Like, you'd be all right with collecting that. Now, what if I said, I want you to collect the money and then you keep it? Now there's an uncomfortableness then, right? So this idea, I'm not good at asking for money, you just have a self-worth issue. That's what it is. You have a self-worth issue. You don't think you're worth it, right? You're not charging what you're worth. I'll say you're always charging what you think you're worth, right? You just don't think as much of yourself. Who would you have to become, right? Who would you have to become to double your rate? Who, and what does that person, like, what does that person do? What does that person read? Is that person fighting people on Twitter every day? Like, if I told you I've got a friend who's 6% body fat, what do you think he eats? Like, what do you think what his training program looks like? If I told you there's a friend who's a millionaire, what do you think he does on a day-to-day basis? So this is the sort of secret to this, Paul, is that you do that stuff first, right? So charging what you're worth is a real challenge. But let's just flip it. Is you're probably charging what you think you're worth, right? If you think you're worth more than that, then you should charge more than that, right? But it's a self-worth issue, which is a bigger conversation and a bigger number of steps. But who would you have to become to be comfortable with this? What would you have to know to be better? And here's my cheat sheet. If I told you you were fighting in the UFC in 4 months and you could have anything you wanted to do this, right? What would you choose? You'd probably choose a coach, right? You'd probably have a guy who could get you ready faster than you could figure out yourself. So my cheat sheet is every 90 days, I write down goals that I'm working on, right? Or for my business, I started every quarter or the start of the year. And I'm like, here's what I need to know, right? If I'm just talking training, I need to understand assessments, program design, coaching cues and communication skills, and some business things. On a scale of 1 to 5, how good am I at that? And then ask a question, and do my results reflect what I think I'm good at, right?
Great question, yeah.
And then I'll come to an issue where I'm like, you know what? I'm not great at assessment. Who's the best in the world at assessment? Gray Cook, I'll say. Gray Cook and the functional movement screen guys, right? I'm going to pick them. Do I have all their educational material? Have I been to their courses? Because it's right there, and I'm choosing not to learn it, right? So then I just identify what I need to learn, who I need to learn it from, and I go down the rabbit hole. And I call it the 5-3-1 model, which is, Jim Wendler does that for training, but I call it 5-3-1. I think I got it from Darren Hardy. 5 books, 3 home study courses, and 1 live event in 90 days. You do that, you'll know more than 90% of the people on that topic. You want to learn sales? 5 books, 3 home study courses, get to a live event or hire a coach, right? And you'll get to the front of that. And it's usually charging what you're worth is, I'm not going to argue with you to put your rates up. I'm going to argue that you don't feel you're worth it. What would we have to do to make you feel you're worth it? Because you already have a number that you wouldn't do it for, right? Like if I said, hey, Paul, can you come and I want you to do a 2-hour seminar for me, and let's say your rate's $200, right? $200, £200, and I offer you 5, you won't do it, right? Because that's not so there's a number, you already have a number that you're okay with, because you feel like this is where I am. I just want to take that up. But for charging what you're worth means the worth comes first, right? So the question is, what do we have to do to get you there? What do you think you have to learn? And then if you've got a good coach or mentor or colleagues, you're like, what do you think I'm lacking, right? What do you think I need to do to get to the next level? And then it's just putting in, write that 12-week program, put in the work a little bit, and we're not done at the end. We've got to put that on maintenance, and then we build up another weak link, right? So it's definitely a mindset, but it starts with let's get you better. Like let's be the best there is at this, and let's strengthen your strengths and bring up your weaknesses.
Yeah, no, that's a very valid point, and that ties in. You know, you famously have, and
Famous,
I saw famously,
infamous.
yeah, infamous. Now, where did I see it? I saw an interview with you in Story Selling, I think the book was. Yeah, and you were talking about the values of the gym, the values of the business of Results Fitness.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a couple that really sprung out for me. One was make a profit. I love that that's a value, because how many businesses legitimately talk to their customers and their clients about making a profit? It seems to be one of those conversations that's just put to one side. And the other one, which I really loved, was always bring your best. Two wonderful values. Where did these come from?
And what I do with that too is the actual wording is strive for profitability, but that means your workout as well. We're investing in you, and I want it to have a return. To me, aerobic training is a depletion, and I think strength training is an investment, right? So that's part of, like, we're striving for profitability in your training, but I'm up front. This business is designed to make a profit. Now we invest some of those profits into training and education, and it will return. But we were not doing this to lose money. So it came from Tony Shea, who just passed away, unfortunately.
Zappos,
the entire company on core values. And what I did is I was looking at different companies, and if you look at Starbucks, Nike, Disney, Nordstrom's, they all have a set of core, and Zappos being the best one, they all have a set of core values that everything is run through. And that was the only thing that had these, what I call the category killer, the number one in each category. Like Disney's number one, Starbucks is number one. Everybody else is just playing, right? These defined core values of how they operate, their values and their vision are so aligned. So we sat down with our team and came up with, like, what do we really believe in? And I don't believe there's right or wrong core values, only strong or weak. If you watch a friend of mine, Stuart McGill, who's a leading spinal researcher in the world, if you watch Stuart present, the guy's a genius, but he's very straight-laced. That is one of his core values. Me, I'm an idiot, right? I'm fooling around, having jokes, but that's important to me, is to have fun. Like, life's too short. I mean, which one is right? It doesn't matter. It's just strong or weak, right? So we just built our business on what's important to us. And I think if I ask people, who do you respect? Like, what actor do you like? What athlete do you like? Who are these people you respect? It's usually because of a core value about them, right? And it could be they take risks, or they never take risks, right? Both of those are equally valid. So what resonates and what's important to you, and that just shaped our operating system. And our operating system is where we are. Like, we're now being open. I mean, the last year's been a little different, but we're approaching year 21 in April. Most gyms don't make it to year 5. No. Right? I don't know too many in the world who have had the same owners that whole time. I know gyms have been around longer and have sold a bunch of times, so we've had the same team, which is our when we advertised in the beginning, we were the new gym in town. Now we're the original and best. That's our slogan, right?
Original gangsters, right?
We go original and best. We were at the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow in 2014, and my wife saw it on an Iron Brew slogan. And it was since whatever year, going strong, original and best. And we were like, we're having that. That's Results Fitness.
That's it.
Going from Iron Brew.
Brilliant. Don't worry. We'll keep that quiet. I can edit that out.
I mean, if I was selling like a fizzy drink, I think they could come after me. Right? Well, when I'm selling weight training programs, I don't think
you'll be all right. I'm sure you'll be all right. Oh, Iron Brew will love it. Don't worry. They're quirky guys. Alan, look, I'm mindful of your time. I know you've got to shoot off very soon, so I want to thank you for taking the time out and giving us an absolute been pleasure to listen to you, and the value you've given has been extraordinary. Where can people find more out about you?
The easiest place right now, rather than give everybody all the websites, just head over to Instagram's probably the one I'm the most active on right now. I cross-post other platforms. But Instagram.com and my what do you call it, a handle? My handle is just my name, Alwyn Cosgrove. It's spelled with a ALWYN, so little
I'll put the link on the show
to
notes.
right?
Yeah, don't worry.
But, that's the easiest way to everything I'm doing gets sent there at some point. Right. Perfect. So I'd love to, and if you guys, anybody listening has any questions, any follow-up stuff, just slide into my DMs.
Oh, check you out. Damn, well, that's because you're only young, right? You know the lingo.
26.
There you go, mate. Alan, thanks ever so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me. I look forward to coming back, Paul.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.